For the first time in history, the Supreme Court will be holding oral arguments over the phone. And the public, you and me, we can listen if we want to. So we're bringing in Ilya Shapiro to talk a little bit more about that. Ilya, you are the director of the Robert A. Levy Center for Constitutional Studies. Thank you so much for joining us. So give us a sense of how this is going to go down. Like, what will we see? What will we hear when this begins?
You're using the future tense, and it's ongoing right now. You tore me away from the riveting argument over the trademarkability of Booking.com. That's the first case. I think they chose kind of a low-key technical case, nothing that's too controversial or politically significant, and also that it has two experienced appellate advocates. They wanted to make sure that people wouldn't be phased. But yeah, it's historic. It's significant. Never have we had a live stream, audio or video. People are live tweeting it. I have the audio playing in my ear while my Twitter feed is on to see what the reporters and other pundits and just anybody watching wants to say. Chief Justice Roberts is traffic cop, so it's not all the justices jumping in on each other as is normally the case. Instead, Chief Justice Roberts says when it's someone's turn and they go in order of seniority, and then he cuts off the answer at a significant at the requisite time to go to the next justice. And importantly for that, Justice Thomas, who is the senior most justice next after the chief, has asked a series of questions of both counsel. I think it's about 3 years ago when he last asked questions. He doesn't do that very often, but this is an orderly process, I think more to his liking.
So, Ilya, I was really surprised when I heard that this decision was going to be made. What led the Supreme Court to make this call, and how does it differ from past decisions the court has made on holding arguments over the phone?
Literally make this call because it is, as I said, a teleconference. They're not Zooming here. They're not doing on Skype. It is a teleconference with all of the things we experience in our teleconferences. Like Justice Sotomayor was on mute for a while, and she had to unmute herself and then apologized. The decision.
Oh
was
man,
made,
Ilya, I just can. I can only imagine that if it's like any kind of conference call that you normally have to be on, I can just imagine the Chief Justice going, "Can everybody please put their calls on mute? Can everybody please put their calls on mute?" And then unmute them when they have to talk. It's got to be a nightmare.
There was a lawnmower sound coming from Justice Gorsuch's audio. Maybe his neighbor was out mowing the lawn. Really, they're the justices. They're just like us. But the decision was made because they postponed the March arguments, and then they postponed the April arguments. And really, there are some cases that could not wait until the fall, meaning a decision potentially not until June 2021, like the issue of the subpoenas of President Trump's finances, like the issue of faithless electors for the Electoral College, certain other cases that have some timeliness to them that need to be resolved, and not this one. As I said, they probably picked this trademark of a URL of a website just to test out things on the first day.
I feel like this is like you're watching we're hearing about the beginning of the next SNL skit. It's tailor-made for SNL.
Absolutely, and they're gonna turn up all these jokes about conference calls. Someone shows up late, someone goes out of order. It really is. They're being polite. Like I said, this is the most orderly argument I've ever heard because they're taking turns. They're not jumping on each other. And the Chief Justice makes sure that the counsel gets time to speak, but then cuts her off after she makes her remarks. And that's another thing to note. Both counsel today are women, which is still relatively rare at the High Court.
So in terms of the rest of the week, what sort of arguments can the public hope to be tuning in for?
Yeah, tomorrow there's the I believe it's the USAID versus AOSI. It's basically a condition on the funding of certain healthcare providers abroad. Interesting government compulsion case. I'll actually be commenting on C-SPAN live after that argument if your viewers tear away from CBSN. On Wednesday, we have Little Sisters of the Poor about conscience protections, again from the Affordable Care Act. The nuns, again, don't want to pay for certain types of birth controls and things like that. Next week, we'll have the cases of subpoenas for Donald Trump's financial records, as well as faithless elector cases. Can a state punish a would-be elector, part of the Electoral College, for not voting for their assigned candidate? So important cases here.
So Ilya, finally, I guess until we get a handle on the coronavirus, the pandemic, I guess we can expect to see this format for the rest of the year?
Well, these are the last 2 weeks of argument. They did push some of the cases that were supposed to be heard this term into next term, into the fall. I think Chief Justice Roberts, the court, certainly is hoping not to have to replicate this. I'm sure they won't be too pleased with the live tweeting and this instanalysis that I'm giving you right now. I mean, this is really remarkable. But yeah, depending on what the health conditions are, who knows? Maybe like the sports leagues might be starting up with empty stadiums, but still playing. Maybe we'll have Supreme Court arguments without an audience and just the lawyers and the justices. But they don't have any arguments scheduled until after next week, until they're set to come back in the next term in October.
All right, really interesting stuff. Ilya Shapiro, thank you, my friend. Thanks for dealing with the technical difficulties that we sometimes have in doing live television, live broadcast news from our homes. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take care. Stay safe.
All right, you can listen to the whole hearing beginning well, actually, it's already underway, as you heard from Ilya. In fact, and on one of the screens here in my apartment, I had CBSN on, and interestingly, Anne-Marie, I was watching our feed, and then it kicked me immediately on my Apple TV to the Supreme Court arguments, and I had to manually put it back onto me and you. So if people are interested, there's another feed. Go to cbsnews.com/Supreme Court.
Vlad, I think this is such a cool idea. And actually, I hope they almost sort of continue some version of it even after the coronavirus restrictions have been lifted, because I think this is the kind of transparency that leads to greater understanding of the roles that sort of our different arms of the government play. The Supreme Court is sort of shrouded in a tremendous amount of mystery, even though, you can sit in on and listen to arguments anytime you want. Most of us don't have time to, line up and spend the day. So I think this is brilliant.
Yeah, transparency in a democracy I'll always take that.